Hi clay friends. I'm thinking with Easter coming up, this week might be a good time to make a rabbit. What do you think? Should we give it a try? For this rabbit, we're gonna need your clay, a pencil or a skewer, or a paper clip unfolded, and a little cup of water. So one thing to keep in mind, if you're reusing your clay from your bag over and over again, you want to keep it a good moisture level, and a good way to tell is take a piece of it, roll it out into a coil, and then bend it and see if it cracks. And if you bend it and it cracks, that means you need to sprinkle a little bit more water in it and leave it in the bag and let it absorb the water so that it's sticky enough to stick to itself. And if it's so sticky that it's easily leaving like fingerprints when you handle it, it might be a little bit too wet, and then you can just leave it out for a little bit, half an hour, and let it dry out a little bit. So this is kind of a good consistency right here. So for our rabbit, we're going to start with 2 egg shapes. So let's take a ball of clay that fits in the size of your, about the size of your fist here. So you can pat it back and forth with your palms and work that kind of not quite a circle, more of a long oval or egg shape. So this is going to be the body of our rabbit. So we want kind of an egg shape. You can kind of see it's a little bit narrower at this end and a little fatter on this end. So that's our body. He's not going to stand up very well until we get some legs on there, but there's our body. And then we're going to take a smaller piece, piece that'll fit about the size, it looks about like this in the size of your palm, and then pat that into an egg shape also. And you can pinch it out a little bit fatter where the cheeks are going to be, so you can kind of start to visualize, get your egg shape going on here, and then you can pinch it out a little bit fatter here where your cheeks are. So this is going to be our head, so it's going to end up looking something like this. But before he's going to stand up, we're going to need to add some legs on there. So let's add some hind legs first. Take some of your clay and we'll roll out a pretty thick coil. And then we're going to cut the coil in half so that both of the feet are the same size. So we're going to cut that in half. And their feet are pretty darn big. We are going to, let's get this guy out of our way a little bit. Where we cut it, it's got sharp edges. So we want to soften that up a little bit, and we're going to flatten that out and turn that into a foot shape. Now, rabbits have 4 toes, and their paws come in just a little bit. So something like this. So they're a little bit rounded in, pretty big, flat, floppy feet. And then you can just draw some toe marks, either with your pencil or a paper clip, something like that. You just kind of draw and make it look like he's got 4 little toes there. So that's 1 foot. Same thing on our other one. Instead of the sharp edge, we're going to bend that over, smooth that off, and make it a nice rounded edge, and squeeze it down into a bit of comes to a little bit of a point, because the middle 2 toes are longer than the side toes, and they're a little bit flat there. So once you get that rounded, we'll do the same thing with a paper clip or pencil or skewer and draw some little toe marks in there. All right, so we have our 2 hind paws there. And we're going to use that. So let's move this little guy out of our way. Use this board to work on. So we're going to decide how we want him. This guy's sitting up pretty upright. So we're going to squeeze these 2 hind legs in like this. And we're just going to squeeze them into the body and then blend them in. So we're going to drag some of that extra clay up and onto the body there. So we're dragging that up and attaching the back feet there. And then they also have pretty big haunches here. So the best way to make 2 haunches is to take 2 balls of clay. And if you grab them at the same time, they're more likely to be the same size. So you want to pinch them back and forth until you get them about this two balls about the same size. And we're going to roll it, and we're going to roll it, and then kind of flatten it out a little bit, flatten it out a little bit. And then these guys can go right on here, and we'll blend this in, and that becomes that back haunch area. So again, we're going to drag some of the clay and blend that on there. Make it, we don't want it to look like it's just two separate pieces of clay. We want it to look like it's all part of the same rabbit body. Unless, of course, you're making a Franken bunny, and that's okay too. Maybe you want to make a Franken bunny with parts just look like they're kind of all sewed on and detached. Okay, so it's starting to shape up like a little bit of a rabbit body. Kind of see here, we've got a belly, those hind haunches. And let's smooth that back off a little bit. Just going to pick it up and we're going to smooth this back area off. Make sure it's all attached really well and blended. All right, once you get the back all blended there, we'll eventually put a tail on right there, but we're not going to do that quite yet because we have to handle it, and the tail's a little bit fragile and we would smudge it. So for now, we're just going to get that nice and blended on the back. And now let's talk about his front legs. The front legs are a lot skinnier than the back legs. So we can take out and roll out. Let's get a long coil going here. You take a long coil and bring it up like this and wrap it around into a U shape like that, and then we'll cut off the extra. We don't need quite that much, so we'll cut it off right there. And this way these front arms come right up into his shoulder joints, and we can put a little piece here to form the chest. So from the side he's looking like this. So their arms bend back a little bit. They have a little bit of an elbow like we do. They bend back and then they come forward, and then we can press the front paw down a little bit. Same thing, we'll give this guy a little bit of a bend in the arm, or leg, I guess it's actually leg. And then have that front paw come forward and round that out. And we can do the same thing we did on the hind legs. You can use that paper clip and draw his 4 little toes there, so you can kind of give a hint of some toes. So those look like toes. And then up here, we can take this extra piece of coil that we cut off and put a little bit right here for that chest area. So let's just pinch off part of that coil, a little bit more. And then we can blend all this in together. And that's going to be the chest area. And see how it comes up here? We can blend this top part too. We can leave the lower part separate so you can see that it's a separate leg, but the top part where the shoulder area is, we'll want to blend that all together. So you just use your fingers to drag some of the clay from that shoulder area back onto the rest of the body. Turn them around here and get them all blended in. Blend the chest in. And when you're working on your pieces, it's always good to turn them around and look from all different sides. So sometimes that's why I like to work on some sort of a board, and you can use like a cookie sheet or a cutting board or any kind of board you can find at home. That way I don't have to pick the rabbit up as much. If I pick him up and turn him around a lot and he's not all the way attached yet, sometimes his parts can fall back off. But if you work on a board, that way you can just move the board around. And you can go in with like the end of a pencil or a skewer or something and kind of define this little area here. Okay, so you can kind of see we've got the legs coming up there, blending on the shoulders. Now we're going to take a look at our head. And you can decide, do you want his head like off to the side a little bit, straight? Do you want him looking down? Do you want him looking up? Totally up to you what kind of position you want your rabbit to be in. And we've got a little scrap of coil left. We can use the same coil and we can thin that out a little bit. Get the paper clip out of the way. And wrap that around and make his neck. So we'll just take a tiny little coil here and we're going to wrap that around, and that's going to help attach the head to the body and form the neck area. And sometimes it's hard to get your finger in there to blend that, so a good trick is if you use the side of the skewer, you can dip your skewer in just a little bit of water and then get right in here and kind of roll it up and down, drag it up and drag it down, and then rotate. kind of go all the way around. And what we're doing is we're taking some of that coil and we're dragging it down, and some of the coil and dragging it up. And that's what's going to blend it, make it look like it's all part of the same body, and make sure it stays on and doesn't fall back off. So this is why it's sometimes easier to have it on a board. That's why you can just rotate your board around while you work on all the different sides. We can smooth those little marks off. All right, starting to look a little bit like a rabbit, getting there. With a rabbit, what really defines it is those ears. So don't worry if your rabbit doesn't look quite like a rabbit yet. As soon as you get those ears on, it will definitely look like a rabbit. Okay, so the other thing that's distinctive other than the rabbits is that little triangle nose that they have. So you can take something like a paper clip, and we're just going to draw the upper lip and the triangle nose with a paper clip. So we're going to come in and make marks for the nose first. Okay, so we've got our little triangle nose, and then we can come straight down, and that gives the upper lips. And if you want to, you can go straight across and give a little bit of a lower lip that makes it look like a little bit of a mouth. And something else that kind of defines them, you can give kind of a hint of whiskers by just making some little holes with the end of your skewer or pencil or paper clip, and give you an idea that there's a hint that there's some whiskers living there. And the next thing that we're going to want to do is figure out where the eyes go. On rabbits, the eyes are pretty wrapped around the side of the head, and that's because they are prey. Other animals like to eat them, so their eyes are way over here so they can see all around in different directions and kind of keep an eye out for coyotes or things like that. So let's kind of just press our fingers in a little bit to mark where we're going to put our eyes. Then we're going to roll out 2 balls of clay. And again, it's easier to roll it out 2 balls at the same time. If I was to roll one out and then attach the eye, I would have a hard time making them exactly the same size. So tuck them pretty small piece of clay, no more than that. That is plenty. And then we'll roll out another piece and try to get it the same size. And you might have to pinch some clay back and forth. So this one's a little bit bigger, so we're just going to pinch a little bit off of that one. All right, those are roughly the same size now. So we're going to pat these down into the eye sockets a little bit here. And then if you want to, we can give him a pupil in there, and you can give him a little pupil or a big pupil. You can use the eraser end of a pencil and give him a bigger pupil. You can use the pencil end and give him a little pupil. Let's do this. We'll just do the eraser for today. Give him big wide-eyed pupils there. And then if you want to, you can give him an upper eyelid up here, kind of an upper eyelid or like upper brow area. You'll notice rabbits a lot of times have what it looks like an eyebrow up here. What it really is a bone above their eye to protect their eye. Let's just give them a little bit of an eyelid here, and you can work this in as much as you want to work that in. Just rolled out a tiny coil, attach the little coil on there. And then for the ears, we're going to grab some nice wet clay, and we're going to roll out kind of a carrot shape. So by carrot shape, I mean a coil that's going to be skinny at one end and thicker on the other end. So we'll start with one coil, and then again, we're going to do 2 at the same time so we can get them to be about the same size, roughly the same size. And we have a lot of extra there, so we can pinch some of that off. Okay, so we've got 2 carrot shapes, and what we're going to do is we're going to use our fingers to start to squeeze that out into more of an ear shape. So instead of a carrot, we're going to take it and squeeze it and start to round it out. So it almost starts to look like a bit of a leaf or maybe like part of a boat. You can squeeze that around, and then at the bottom of their ears, most rabbits, it kind of wraps around and touches itself, so you can pinch the bottom off. So it really starts to look like a bit of a canoe. And their ears are pretty close together on the top of their head. So let's take our other ear and pinch that out. So we're just pinching, 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 pinching. So we're widening that out. And you can decide, I'm going to pinch the bottom together again. So again, we've got a little canoe shape almost. And you can decide if you want the ears to be straight up and alert or like flopped over. You can even make him a lop ear and have his ears coming down. So you decide where you want the ears to sit on the head. And we'll attach them one at a time. And I like to use the skewer again to blend that. So I'll just dip it in a little bit of water and start to drag a little bit of clay from the ear down onto the head. And we'll make this ear a little bit floppy, and then we'll make this ear standing up. And especially on the second one, it's really hard to get your finger in there to blend it. So this is why I really like to use a skewer or some sort of a little stick. Come in on this end, the skinny side of the skewer, and try to blend it a little bit. And that's all the basics for a rabbit. You can add as many details as you want. It's your rabbit. Have fun with it. Some people like to work faster. Some people like to work slower. Totally up to you. Make it your own. The very, very, very last thing that I put on is a tail. And you can make you can add a little ball on the back for a tail, or you can roll out a little bit of a coil like this and then flatten the coil. So you have a little bit of a strip like this, and then start to roll that up. And you get this kind of a little shape like this that you can pinch off and make that into a little tail if you want to. So we'll just stick that on the back there. And the other thing, if you want to, you can take like an old toothbrush or something and start to like brush marks and make little fur, so you can make them look a little bit furry. So play around with those and see what it looks like, see what your rabbit looks like. This is what this guy looks like. This is what his tail looks like and back. And when you're all done, if you want to, you can email me a picture at bakercreekceramics@gmail.com, and we'll put that in our kids gallery. There we go. We've got a couple little Easter bunnies. I hope you have a great Easter, and you can check our website later. We'll keep adding more animals throughout the month of April. So have lots of fun with your clay, and thanks for hanging out with me.